Hi, this is Dr. Stephen Seiler. I am speaking to you from Norway, where it's still winter right now, but spring is coming. And on April 2nd, we'll be doing a new webinar with my friends down in Australia, Pogo Physio and Brad Beer and his team. The title of this webinar will be Durability and High-Intensity Repeatability in Endurance Training. And it'll be a 3-hour event with sessions on understanding the big picture for long-term development, and then discussing how to program and execute the long, low-intensity sessions, how long, what intensity. Then we'll discuss high-intensity training, whether to intensify or extend those interval sessions, and why. Then we'll discuss the training monitoring process to make sure that the training is sustainable and the balance between work and rest is being achieved. And then we'll open it all up for questions so that you can make sure that you come away with an understanding of what I'm trying to get across. So join me on April 2nd. I think it's going to be a good Saturday. Looking forward to speaking with you.
Oh yes, we are so excited to be hosting Dr. Stephen Seiler once again for this upcoming live stream, April the 2nd, Durability and High-Intensity Repeatability in Endurance Training. Tickets are available over at physicalperformanceshow.com, physicalperformanceshow.com, $49 Australian per person, which includes a post-event recording of the live stream and a copy of the presentation via PDF. So if you are outside of Australia and cannot make the live stream time, 3 to 6 p.m, the 2nd of April, jump over and register and avail yourself of this great learning opportunity.
Hey guys, I'm Emma Jeffcoat. I am an Australian Olympic triathlete, and you are listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Polar's world-leading GPS multi-sport and running watches and heart rate monitors. I'm Brad Beer, sports and exercise physiotherapist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. Of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes: interest editions, learn-ins, catch-up episodes, expert editions, and featured performers. And off the back of last week's interest edition with acclaimed author Jenny Valentish exploring why people do hard things, you'll enjoy a conversation today with Australian Olympic triathlete Emma Jeffcoat. Now, Emma shares around her career highs, lows, and learn-ins, and importantly, discusses the poignant issue of comments that can destroy athletes. Emma candidly shares some of the commentary that she's received throughout her developing triathlon career and the effect that has had on Emma over the years, psychologically, health-wise, and performance-wise. But what's so great about Emma's story, she is going from strength to strength and showing those critics that when it comes to performance, ill-informed commentary and beliefs around body composition have no place. Enjoy this conversation with Emma Jeffcoat, Australian Olympic triathlete, who made her debut at the 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games on this Featured Performer episode. Emma Jeffcoat, welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on. I thought you'd never ask. It's a long time coming.
Oh, gosh. Well, we have known each other for quite a few years now, and you've had quite the journey in the last 12, 18 months. It's career sporting highs and hard realities along the way as well, and so much to talk through, highs, lows, and learnings. But Emma, for those that don't know your background, let's just start there. Getting into the sport, how did
your entry into endurance sports and triathlon even kick off?
Yeah, so I grew up with doing surf lifesaving. So I think a lot more people are familiar with that sport at the minute, especially with the Iron Series. They're about to kick off for rounds 3 to 6 on the Gold Coast tomorrow. I grew up doing surf lifesaving at a surf club called DY on the Northern Beaches in Sydney. I raced through all the ranks up to like a national and they're world champs, I guess, level. I was always like a finalist across the water events. So like the iron and then the swim, the board and the ski. And then I fancied the 2 kilometre soft sand run. Yeah. Grew up doing surf club, was a keen swimmer, and then used to just run on the side to kind of keep fit for that. And it was only when I left school, I'd done like one triathlon that my school teacher kind of got me to sign up for. Loved it, got a hired bike for that race that I didn't even know how to change the gears, and I wore joggers, and it was just such a rookie. I think I did an outfit change after every leg, but I loved it. So after I left school, kind of found a training group on the beaches in Sydney and got into triathlon from there. And a few years later found myself racing draft legal in ITU.
What age were you when you did your first triathlon, Emma?
That would have been when I was in year 12, so 17. So I was quite late coming into the sport. But to be honest, I kind of think of it as a blessing. I think it's meant that now, like 10 years later now, which is scary, 27, I still feel so fresh. And I still have such a passion and enjoyment for the sport.
The medical sports science community well knows now that early specialisation for athletes in any sport can have its drawbacks. So, hacking around, you're performing at a great level in surf lifesaving and other endeavours prior to really buckling down with triathlon, I guess, in many ways is a good thing for your career longevity.
Yeah, definitely. And, I was the kid at school that gave everything a go. I was in the basketball team, the water polo team, touch footy, athletics, cross country. Like I was hopeless at basketball, pretty average at touch footy and a bit handy at water polo. But for me, it's always kind of been just about having fun and having a go. I absolutely love that. And that's where I kind of have my passion in just giving it my best, whether I'm winning or losing, I don't really care.
Yeah, when I think about how you race and show up, I think that's a good summary. Have a crack, give it your best, lay it all out there. Emma, who was the first triathlete you really aspired to be like? I know you posted from quarantine on the return from the Olympic Games, Tokyo 2021. You posted that you were taking pictures of the likes of Olympic champion Gwen Jorgensen, and then, a few years later, you're racing amongst the elites, including Gwen.
I think that's like one of the most like standout races when I think back. I'm trying to think what year it was. I want to say maybe 2016. We used to race it. It was like Kurnell World Cup, we called it, but it was like a New South Wales Triathlon Series event at Kurnell, and Gwen was part of Jamie Turner's group, and all those girls turned up to race. And it was the first triathlon that I got my dad along to come watch me at. And so he had absolutely no idea. He turned up late, so he kind of missed the start, and then just found me on course out there. Yeah, I raced how I always loved to race, and just went hard from the gun. And I actually got a break swim bike. And so when I got off onto the run, I had, I think, about a 2-minute lead on the rest of the girls. And Gwen just came like a steam train, and it came down to nearly a sprint finish. And I think Gwen, ended up beating me by 5 or 10 seconds across the line. And it was when she was just winning race after race in the World Series and no one had beaten her. So, I crossed the line, and my dad came up to me and gave me a pat on the back. He's like, good job, but better luck next time, kid. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. Like my eyes are just huge. Like it's like basically like the world champs, racing my idol in Gwen and coming so close to beating her. I guess it was a local race, but for me that was just starting to get a crack in some of those elite races at a World Cup level, that was awesome. But yeah, Aussie-wise, I think Emma Moffat was probably my, I guess, Aussie idol. I always loved how strong she was across the board, and especially watching her in a lot of those front packs.
Your first World Triathlon Series start was 2017 officially, is that right? On the Gold Coast?
Yeah.
You finished 11th on that debut, which is quite a debut.
Yeah, it was. I always look back on that and I wish I appreciated it more at the time. I think there's a lot to learn from the mindset I had going into that one. But yeah, it was an awesome race. I was fortunate enough to have some family and friends there and be on the Gold Coast. And it actually was teed as our Com Games selection for 2018. as one of the races. So I think you just had to be, well, abbreviation, had to be in the top 10. Yeah, 11th wasn't too shabby.
It was a great start. And I mean, over those years, so that was 2017. Then obviously you made your Olympic debut last year in Tokyo, 2021. You wrote in that Instagram reflection, that piece from quarantine post the Olympics, that it was hardly smooth sailing. You feel like you wish you could write a book on it. But for now, rest assured that hard work, self-belief, courage, determination, and crazy love for what you do does pay off. But you mentioned that you've had to overcome many hurdles. Like, what are some of the key hurdles, Emma, that you've overcome?
Yeah, I think when I reflect back on what, I guess, not just the last, 12 to 18 months, but I guess the past kind of 5 years in getting to the start line for Tokyo, getting on the team to Tokyo, you could look at it differently. I think, everyone's in a similar boat within the last 12 to 18 months with COVID and different, I guess, hurdles they've had to overcome there. I know for me, being in Melbourne, I just felt like the 12 months leading up to the games, I was constantly battling where to base myself. Both Danielle, my coach, and I, and our squad, just trying to avoid lockdowns. And it felt like sometimes every time we packed up and got across the border in time and set up, we had to move again, So it was just really disruptive. It was unfortunate that I'm such a family person. So it meant that there was no option in terms of getting home to see family. And then when things like family members pass away and you can't get home to see your loved ones or be at funerals so close to major events, it just kind of all adds up. And I think they're just some of the, I guess, hurdles that COVID have presented. And I think, I have utmost respect for elite athletes over the last 2 years and what additional, I guess, stresses we've been through to get to the games and to do what we love. So there's some standouts, but then I think along the way as well, I'm really proud of the fact that I've been able to complete a university degree and become a registered nurse alongside becoming a professional triathlete. That was something I was really determined and have a real genuine passion for nursing. So it was kind of a no-brainer in finishing that one. But, there was many months that I was working full-time as a nursing student, on night shifts and evening shifts, and you'd be getting, 6 to 7 hours of training done in the morning, turning up for your nursing shift from 1:30 till 10 p.m. and doing that on repeat for, 6 to 8 weeks straight. And then I think I finished on a Friday, jumped on a plane Saturday and was over in Europe racing. So, things like that, it's only in hindsight now that I look back and I'm actually proud of how I managed that and held myself throughout that. At the time you're so focused on the process and getting each day done well that you kind of don't give yourself the credit. But yeah, and then on top of that, I think, a standout for us athletes is always going to be injuries. There's some big hurdles I've had along the way and overcome. I changed coach, so I moved to Danielle in 2019, the end of 2019, and that kind of was an awesome new chapter for me down here in Melbourne. Some big changes in terms of training and volumes and kind of volumes that I thought I was never going to be capable and was told that I would never be able to do, especially running wise with what I got told was my body shape and parameters. And so to then work with a whole big new team down here and kind of smash through that and really reestablish myself as an athlete has been terrific.
Yeah, so that coaching transition happened at the end of 2019 because you were stewarded well as a junior. And then I guess it's a new chapter under Danielle Stefano. What would you say you've learned or appreciated through those two different experiences?
Yeah, I was coached by Mick Delamont from when I left school and really started so fresh in triathlon. And Mick was terrific. He was an amazing coach to help develop and nourish me as I came up and I guess learnt the sport of triathlon. Mick was brilliant. It was timely when I finished my university degree to kind of be able to, I guess, pack up, leave home and move to a daily training environment. And I originally moved to Jamie Turner's environment briefly. But yeah, that was quite short-lived. And for most of 2019, just found myself a bit lost. And then before finding Danielle in the end of 2019 and haven't looked back since. It's been amazing. And I think one of the biggest things I've, I guess, been able to appreciate after nearly 2 years with Danielle is just the trust that I have in her and the team that she's helped me build around me. I think for me, I've always been someone that just tried to do everything myself and manage everything myself, and kind of letting go and embracing other people and letting them do their job. You know, they're the experts in different fields, so actually opening up and letting them help me has been amazing. But I mean, you know, you can't do that without the trust in the team around you. And I'm so grateful for that team that I've got down here around me now.
There's that adage, isn't there, that trust in the process, the training itself, is as important as the training itself. So it's interesting to hear you say that, but not unexpected in many ways. Something I just found interesting there, Emma, was you touched on that desire you had for control that you had to learn to let go. Where do you think that desire to control things comes from? It's a tough question. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, it is tough. I think it's quite common, to be honest, amongst like elite athletes. I think especially among triathletes, I think it's kind of bred from the nature of the sport. You know, you have to be quite controlled to be able to manage 3 sports at an elite level. So I guess a lot of aspects in your life need to be controlled to be able to be at an elite level and, you know, be the best you can be. I think where it becomes dangerous is when you do just start to over control things and I think become too strict with yourself. I think not only one, does that stop, like I think that kind of pumps the brakes almost in a way, and it stops you having fun with the sport that I hope a lot of people love to begin with. But I equally think it can become a detriment then, when you over control things and don't let those people help you where it's their job, you know, whether that's a dietitian, a strength and conditioning coach, you know, a physio, massage. I guess if you're withholding information or thinking you can manage or do something better yourself, or getting advice and going about it, you know, differently, then it's always going to come back and bite you in the bum. But yeah, as I said, I think for me, the massive factor was the trust and establishing trust in that team around me so that, you know, I have no issue sharing everything.
And you know, you've really gone from strength to strength with from the outside looking in with confidence. I'd say, what are the key moments in your journey up to Tokyo with your confidence? I guess that early race with Gwen was a great confidence boost that you shared. But were there any key turning moments where your belief deepened in, as you often sign off on with your posts, you know, dare to dream on Instagram? You had this Olympic dream from as a girl, right? And so what were the key moments along the way? You've had some victories along the way.
Yeah, I think definitely the Com Games race in 2017 being my first World Series race. I think that 11th place really gave me the confidence that I belonged out there. And I think I was with under Mick at the time. And I know before the race, I must have made a comment to him around like, you know, this is so cool. I get to race the people I look up to. And he kind of challenged me and was like, no, you're racing against them. You're not like, you don't feel privileged that you're racing with them. Like you stand on your own 2 feet and you've earned this to race against them, you know, and to kind of have that sink in a little bit and then finish, you know, in 11th and at the pointy end of the race, it gave me, I guess, that confidence that I really do belong. And I can be at the pointy end of this sport that I so admire and want, and had so many and still have so many big aspirational goals to achieve. So I think that, and then the following year in 2018, winning my first World Cup in Mooloolaba really set the tone again. And then later in that year, I won another World Cup in Chengdu in the following year in Tiziavaris. And I think those kind of races stand out, not just because not because I just won, but I think when I reflect back on those races, my mindset when in those races, a lot of the time I was just super relaxed and confident. And, you know, I wish I could have that same level of confidence every time I line up. But for some reason in those races, I look back and it's like, I just believe that I could go out there and win it. And it's, you know, in Tizzy, it was 2 days of racing straight. So the Sunday's final, you'd done a full triathlon the day before. So it's not like I felt amazing. You know, I remember waking up feeling, I don't know how this is going to go. Yeah. Then it came to the racing. It's just that I guess everyone knows that feeling when you go out, even if you just go out for a run and you have a blinder and you're like, oh, that just felt amazing. And you just feel like you can do anything. So yeah, I feel like those races along the way have just given me the confidence, and alongside the training, you know, the consistent training over the last 2 years that I've done with Danielle with limited racing within COVID. I think, you know, for many that might have proved a challenge, not having much racing, I guess, opportunity choosing to stay in Australia. But for us, we really created an environment down here in Melbourne where I was able to be challenged, in track races, in crit races, in open water swim events. We kind of created that challenge and kept the fun in it that I so love about racing, and just saw those improvements through the consistent training along the way too.
When I think of your racing style, you are a true racer, as we've already touched on. You've always enjoyed your time at Super League and going out and had the swim jersey quite often, the leader's swim jersey, and always laid it down.
Yeah, that's absolutely the way I love to race. And I think that's always where I've done my best, is when it's almost like, you're carefree, you're out there to just have fun and rip in. Like, you're going hard from the gun. The tactical, I'm finding I've been doing a few track races of late just for fun. And when it's a tactical race, I'm useless, because it's like, what are we doing here? Like, we're racing, let's go. What are we jogging around for? So no, that's the way I love to race. And I think I'm very competitive. One of 4 kids, I grew up that way. So everything's a race.
You mentioned your family there, Emma. It's easy to see how close you are with your family. I know you've got brothers, is that right? So what's the makeup of the kids?
Yeah, so I'm the eldest, and then I've got a sister called Meg and 2 younger brothers, Will and Ben. Yes, there's 4 of us.
Let's talk Tokyo, because the lead over there is your family wasn't able to join you because of the games being held in a pandemic. So firstly, that would have been tough, right? This is a dream that you've had from childhood, to then not be able to have your family there. It's something that I think everyone appreciates about the Tokyo Games, but still it must have been a bittersweet moment to be leaving them behind.
Yeah, it was. I think, to be honest, we had enough time ahead to know that we wouldn't have spectators. So it kind of wasn't like the carrot was dangled and you had this alternate view that you might be able to get family and friends over there. I had just accepted that wasn't going to be the case. I was, hopeful that I'd have my coach Danielle over there, and Danielle was able to be there. Unfortunately, she didn't have accreditation, so wasn't actually at race site, but she was on the ground in Tokyo. So it's funny just how your, mindset shifts, and I was grateful to have Danielle and be surrounded by my teammates over there, which is crazy to think 2 years ago when I, would have thought about that dream and imagining it as a kid. In your head, you'd have all your family and friends there to support you. But I think that was the massive thing in Australia with a lot of the country in lockdown. You just felt so much support and backing from back home. I think there was so many more people, glued to the TV that maybe wouldn't usually be, and really getting amongst it, that I know for me, I could really feel that support coming from back home.
And getting on the plane to get there, as is often the history of Triathlon Australia, with selection, it can be a very tough, brutal process for athletes with so much talent and depth, typically in Australia, in the ranks. Getting your seat, that was a challenge. Getting, as is anyone's selection, typically on a team for Triathlon Australia, or any Australian team for that matter. But how many weeks out in advance did you get confirmation, and how was that initially? Obviously quite exciting.
Yeah, it was tough. Look, that's the thing. Like, I know how much becoming an Olympian and going to the Olympics meant to me. And I know it means so much to so many of us. So to not be selected was always going to be so hard, especially when it was, it came down to the men and women's all spots kind of being discretionary. That's always going to be brutal, because we all know how much we want it. For us, it was just made more difficult in the parameters within COVID and racing and what that looked like. There just wasn't as much racing as there normally was prior to selection. But yeah, the selectors made their choices, and we were notified, I think it was like middle of June. And then, went through processes that need to happen. And I think it was probably early July when I could tell family and friends and make that public. But yeah, we left for Tokyo on the 22nd of July. So it was maybe just under 3 weeks before we flew out that we had official confirmation. So it was a pretty quick turnaround to kind of wrap your head around. But I guess, there's pros and cons to both arguments, whether you want to find out earlier or later.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to keep it a secret, though, must have been really challenging.
It was, especially when everyone's hearing other sports announcing teams and the Olympics is up and coming. The amount of questions you get thrown at you, and people that rightfully, you know, are so close to me that should know, being like, come on, you must know. And you're like, no, just decline all FaceTimes until it was able to be made public.
Well done. And then, Emma, the Olympic experience itself, not talking about the races at this stage, but getting there amongst the village, what are some of your sort of fondest reflections?
Yeah, it was just surreal. I think, you know, actually arriving to the village, seeing the Aussie building decorated in green and gold, you know, the big green and gold kangaroo out the front, the coffee cart, which became infamous and very popular, just seeing everyone in their kit too, like, you know, and arriving into your room and just having, you know, a humongous 2 suitcases full of so much kit you can't even believe. You know, it just made it all sink in and real. And we arrived actually the day of the opening ceremony. So we kind of got a quick tour around the Aussie building and got told where everything was in the village. And before we knew it, we'd, you know, been for a jog and come back and we're going to the Aussie ceremony that the AOC put on just for the Aussies that weren't going actually to the stadium, but staying on the ground. So, yeah, even that, you know, within hours of landing, we were, you know, at the virtual opening ceremony, you know, singing the national anthem and the Olympians' oath. And, yeah, it was just surreal. Actually being there and trying to soak it up. I think it probably wasn't until I got back to quarantine that I actually had multiple minutes to sit down and reflect, I guess, on, the whole experience. Because at the time it was almost just so surreal and you kind of were so focused on your race. And then we had the relay to back up for. So the time in the village was quite, I guess, very focused and you kind of didn't let the whole atmosphere around you, I guess, distract you from that. It was only kind of after the racing was done and you had a second to kind of sit down and soak it up that you were like, whoa, what just happened? And I think speaking to other athletes, I'm not the only one that had a similar kind of, it was just surreal. And I think the big takeaway that a lot of us spoke about and a lot of athletes that had been at prior games, what they reflected back on was just how close the whole Australian team was in Tokyo, because you couldn't have, you know, visitors coming in. You weren't able to you know, leave the village to go out and see sites or watch other, you know, Olympic events. So everyone, unless you're racing, was at the Aussie HQ and in the building. So, you know, we had like plasma screens down the bottom with all the, you know, the events going on. And everyone just like, you know, some of my fondest memories are watching some of the swimming relays and races, having, you know, surrounded by Aussies, watching Ariana Titmus win gold or Emma McKeon win gold, you know, are just terrific.
Fun memories. You also ran into a few stars, including Novak Djokovic. I recall seeing a photo of yourself and I can't recall who was in the picture with you, and Novak. So that would have been a lot of fun, those sorts of things as well.
Yeah, me and Jazz bumped into Novak on the way back. On the way back from dinner. And that's the kind of thing. It was just surreal. I know I put up a video one night of us 3 girls at dinner and, you know, I didn't recognize people that were in the video. And I had people writing back being like, do you know who that is? Like famous basketball players or tennis players, things like that. The night of the opening ceremony, the American Dream Team were getting ready and just walking around, you know, and I'm like, hang on a second, you know, so getting photos with or meeting people like that kind of made the enormity of the games really sink in, given that, you know, you weren't able to, I guess, go out and actually watch other events, which was, I think for me, that was a real, disappointment, because I think I would have loved to have, you know, been able to see when my racing was done, to be able to go and watch, you know, some swimming, some athletics, some sports that, you know, I am just admire, but never get the opportunity to go and see live. But hopefully there'll be another opportunity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Emma, you reflected on a caption on Instagram on your individual race. You were the 26th athlete across the line. If my position's correct, Em, and you reflected, we fell short of I'm an Olympian. We fell short of our goal as a team, and that hurts, but I'm proud of how I raced, adapted and handled myself. We are our own harshest critics, and few will ever understand the whole picture, but I am so proud of the years of work that went into this day. What a journey, living the dream, and this is just the beginning, thanks to your coach, Danielle Stefano. Can you unravel
your reflections and what you were processing there at the time, I think it's easy to forget that that's such a high performance environment is more often mixed with some level of internal. There can only be 3 medalists, and then everyone else has got expectations and dreams, and often, that's people are more likely to be disappointed than ecstatic, I guess, at something like an Olympic Games, right? So take us through your processing. Obviously, you're super proud. What an achievement to get to a Games, to race as strongly as you could. But where did the disappointment come from, Em, as you reflected back?
Yeah, 100% think, as you just kind of put there, I think no one, as an elite athlete, no one sets higher expectations of themselves than you as an athlete. And I think it can be such a derailer when you don't meet those, I guess, expectations that you set for yourself. It's almost like a parameter for what I'll be happy with, and I don't meet those expectations, so I'm now disappointed, not happy. And I think in the heat of the moment, it was, I know for all of us Aussies, it was really harsh. I know Aaron Royal put up a post and commenting, after the men's individual race, they chose to come in the back door, not come in the front entrance, because the 3 boys were disappointed with their performance and didn't want to front, the questions and the Aussie support they had around them, because they were disappointed, I think, within, their own individual races. And I think for us 3 women, there was similar feelings the next day. And unfortunately with the relay, again, we fell short of what our goal was as a strong Australian team. So, yeah, I feel like it's so hard because there's so much support around us too, but there's always going to be, I guess, critics and comments coming through that you can't, I guess, shelter yourself from not seeing. And I guess the harshest part is everything that they've got to say, you've got to assume the athletes already thought it themselves. None of us were coming back from the relay ecstatic with our performance. I can tell you that much. So I think, the disappointment, I guess, came, initially from the result itself. And I think for me, it took a long while to actually process the Games overall and turn that around to actually, now I'm proud of, I am proud of myself and proud of, what I accomplished, mostly to get to the Games, and all the hard work that went before it. I might not look at a 26th place and a 9th place and be ecstatic about it, but I'm so proud of the work and the years of work that I put in to get me to that start line, to be able to go out there and give it what I had. And am I disappointed with what I had on the day? Yeah, I am, but I'm not disappointed by the work, that I put in to get there. And I'm so proud of the people that I was on a team with to go over and race side by side with.
Knowing how you race, as we've touched on, you leave it all out there. So I'm sure on reflection, that on that day, you got the best out of yourself. You didn't turn up to output 60%, right?
Yeah, that's it. And as you kind of said, there's so many different dynamics that come into an Olympics. For us girls, we raced in a typhoon. Who would have thought the amount of hours I'd spend in a heat chamber getting ready for the hot and humid conditions. And then they told us that they're going to make a call at 2 a.m. as to whether we raced or whether we raced 2 days later. So my alarm was going off at 2:50. So it's all these kind of dynamics around it. It's an Olympics, but it's surreal, that's for sure. But I think, I went out there, I gave it everything I had. When I reflect back on the smile that I had crossing the finish line after the individual, that's probably the image I want to, hold on to, that surreal realization that I am an Olympian and I've just finished at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, it's a great image to coming back from the Games to an unusual situation of going to the Northern Territory and sitting in quarantine for 2 weeks, doing Alicia Backey's Pilates classes, former featured expert of the show. That must have been challenging on so many levels, to not be able to get back amongst your family and friends and have some needed embraces.
Yeah, it was. And that's it. I'd planned to go overseas and stay overseas and keep racing. And then we made the call after Tokyo, both from a mental health perspective and physically, to kind of just call it and come home and have a massive reset. And it's exactly what I needed. It just unfortunately meant that I had to spend 2 weeks in not the best mind frame in in Darwin doing my time. We knew, again, it's like the spectators, we knew that we were going to come back and have to do the 2 weeks quarantine. So I had prepared the best way I could. I think I clocked up close to 30 hours on FaceTime or on the phone in that 2 weeks. So I had so many amazing, friends, teammates, family that I chatted with and helped pass the time, and kind of just enjoyed some downtime. It was so hot in Darwin. I know Ash and I were like roommates next to each other, and you'd sit on your balcony just melting. It was like 37 degrees every day, and we had the afternoon suns. So yes, we were grateful to be able to have some fresh air and sit out on our balcony. But Darwin was a very unique experience.
You mentioned you decided yourself and Danielle that there was a good time to take a mental health break, I guess. Was that just mental health from the whole process and built up fatigue, or was that some of that encapsulated in, we mentioned that Australia has a fairly strong history in triathlon over the years, but we also have a fairly strong history in being pretty harsh critics, probably none more so than often the triathlon sporting fraternity, not the general public, but typically the triathlon world often. You said, you can't be shielded by comments in every instance. How did you work through some of that criticism that came up so often from, the armchair critics about performances for the team as a whole, individually, compared to the past, et cetera, et cetera? Like, how do you work through that? Do you use it as fuel, or I'm just curious.
I think for me, to be perfectly honest, I had so much work I didn't even realize I needed to do on myself away from triathlon. So I think for me, that became like not even a factor. It was on the kind of, I wasn't even concerned and kind of switched off from triathlon when I got back, and was just doing the work I needed with my sports psych, with Danielle, around me as a person. And I'm so grateful. At the time, it was one of the hardest periods ever. But in hindsight, it was the best thing I ever could have done. And to put the work into myself, and I guess it took an experience like the Olympic Games and disappointment after following the games to kind of bring up issues and problems that I needed to work through that, another experience or success at the Olympics probably wouldn't have made me address those issues. For me personally, being able to do the work on myself the last few months and seeing how that's changed me and my, composure and my mindset has been, so rewarding coming out the back end in that, those comments and the critics and that noise that goes on, I don't take it personally. I'm not out there to prove them wrong. I'm just out there to do me. And I know that with the team around me, I'm going to be giving my best. It's what I do really well. If I'm out there giving my best, then I'll get what I deserve out of that and I'll be satisfied with it. So I think there's more to say about the people making the criticisms than there is about the people they're criticising.
Social media is great on so many levels, but it certainly does or can create a lot of noise, and that's really all it is, right?
Yeah.
Emma, you posted on the 12th of November, probably one of my favourite posts for 2021 from anyone on the internet, a beautiful post that if we can, let's delve into it.
Please.
We're reflecting on Brookneals' open letter to Dear Olympians, a letter that Brooke wished she had gotten post-Olympics. And you comment that you saw this letter, comments that destroy athletes, followed by 9 unhealthy comments as examples. And you said, it really shook you up as you resonated with it. And the post goes on to outline things that you've added here. Wow, you don't look like a triathlete. You run well for a big girl. How much more weight do you want to lose before world champs? That must have given you hope seeing X supposedly bigger athlete win. If you've got your period, it means you're not training hard enough. Try not to eat too much. It will make you come back even harder. Straight after your diagnosis of your first bone stress injury.
Seriously.
Where do you start? I mean, as a human being, it makes me feel disgusted. As a practitioner in the field, it makes me feel extremely sad. As a dad of girls who don't get a choice over their body shape, it's quite devastating. But how does Emma Jeffcoat work through this really garbage and uninformed, commentary?
it's something I get so fired up about, and I actually really enjoy speaking to people about it, because I think, as I mentioned in that post, a lot of the commentary that comes, I don't actually believe people have, I guess, intent to harm, or they're not out there to have the damaging effect that their comment does have. They're just totally unaware of like their throwaway comment, to an athlete that's a perfectionist type personality and who might have already heard similar comments of, staff within their sport or other athletes, or just, passerbys. That one, it doesn't matter. It's that comment might stick. And I know for me, coming into the sport of triathlon originally, I was blessed to be under Mick Delamont, and he had such a healthy mindset around me and the sport of triathlon. And there was just never any discussion really around weight or body comp or size. And it was all, he actually had a sit down meeting with my dad, because my dad had a lot of questions around, if my daughter's going to pursue sport professionally, like, what does this mean? And my dad raised the question around, his typical triathlon shapes and where does Emma sit? And I remember Dad reflecting back, only in the last few months on what Mick said. And he's like, it's just going to happen naturally. Like, it's not a topic of conversation. And that was a blessing for me, in that my source of, coaching and my go-to person for a large chunk of me getting into the sport was so healthy. Unfortunately, it didn't kind of stop the comments that you got from other people along the way, like I listed in that. So yeah, as I guess what you would call a more solid and bigger athlete coming into the sport, like, yeah, I can remember so many examples, and I don't want to get too fired up because you won't, I'll get on a roll, but it's like, it just blows my mind. I remember being in a race toe for toe with another athlete, and you hearing like someone on the sidelines saying, "Don't worry about Emma, she's too big. You'll outrun her." And it's like, how can you people be like say that, and how can you be so blinded by shape as determining whether that's going to make or break? And I think that's something, for me, it's taken literally until the last 12 months or 12 to 18 months to really embrace that my strength is my strength, and also learning through experience. So, most of that experience not being positive, some, really restrictive eating, calorie counting, underfueling, bone stress injuries, low iron, female hormones down the drain. There was one point I had the estrogen of a menopausal woman. Like, you hear that and you're like, wait, like what? And I'm a nurse, right? Like, I get the medical side to things. And I think that was like a massive turning point around 2019 for me, was just like actually having that sink in and realizing, why am I doing this to myself? Like, I know what I need to be doing, and I know how I need to be fueling and recovering and training. And it's like, off what basis am I restricting? Off comments of people? But unfortunately that's something that I had to deal with. And, the comments don't stop. And especially when they come from people within the sport, that you almost feel like when you're a younger athlete that their comments have, I guess, more validity, whether that's from a dietitian or a physio, asking questions around weight, or suggesting, don't eat too much, or how much more weight do you want to lose, kind of thing, before world champs. Or even just like the big one for me is even people commenting on, oh, you look fit, or you're looking good, how much weight have you lost? Like, sorry, what? Like, how dare you comment? And that's, for me, was a big trigger, I guess, in those years of negative behavior, because I would get those positive comments and it was reinforcing negative behavior. So I would be severely, underfueling myself, trying to balance full-time, nursing with triathlon, barely eating, feeling like crap. And yet you'd get one comment from someone saying, oh, you actually look like a triathlete now. And it would reinforce such negative behavior. So I think for me, the big takeaway are two things. Just, again, having a team around me that I trust, and that I work with now, that those behaviors are so long gone. And I'm so passionate about sharing my experience to try and stop other young up and coming athletes, both male and female, from making the same mistakes. So I'm so open about, I guess, what I went through, and now the changes I've made. But I couldn't have done that without the team that I've now got around me, you know, with Danielle, a dietitian, sports psych, physio, S&C. But equally, I guess, bringing this issue up and talking about it is the next best thing too, because I think for me, what I missed during that was other athletes being vulnerable and being willing to talk about it. Because I think when you hear other people being vulnerable, or you read about it, or you see it, or you hear it on a podcast, it actually, for up and coming athletes, you're like, oh, wow, like I'm not the only person going through this, or I'm not the only person that's had comments thrown my way like that, or, you know, or felt that way. And I think for me, when I put that post up, the amount of people that gave that feedback and had felt the way I kind of described it blew me away, and it was really sad. But I think, yeah, by talking about it and by making people aware and being able to be open and vulnerable, I guess it all helps. I understand it's not going to change overnight. I understand that there's unfortunately, a deep culture ingrained in a lot of elite sports that, the lighter the better, and people have an image of what you should look like. But I think, over time, if we can gradually shift that, then yeah, I'm helping in some small way.
Absolutely. So well done. And thank you for, sharing, Emma, and continuing to share. As you say, bringing anything out into the light is where it always help can be found in that verse, keeping it hidden in the dark. I think attitudes, I reflect as a junior in the 90s coming up, there was very little awareness of fueling or energy deficiency or disordered eating. The mindset was leaner is better. I recall as a junior being told by my well-meaning physio, who had great intentions, that my running injuries at the time were a result of my biomechanics. I had childbearing hips, she said. I had bowed legs, flat feet. And I remember just going, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm going to be able to fulfill any of my dreams off the back of those comments. That was a really early learning experience for me. I remember thinking, if I'm ever in your position as a physio, I will never use words like that, because those labels, you never forget. I look back now and laugh about it, but this is at 41 years of age when you realise it's. But for many years, you carry that with you, those labels, people's opinions.
That's exactly spot on. And I think, as I said, I'm able to look back now, and I'm grateful that at 27, I can look back and reflect and have learnt, I guess, almost quite quickly how negative that behaviour was, and have been able to completely turn that around and now be seeing all the positives that come from that. But yeah, I remember one of my first ever track sessions, and all the other girls, I'd be anxious turning up to track because I already felt like, I wasn't in the right shape, and I was, slow. And it was a hot summer's day, and they were all in, little shorts and a crop top. And I took my singlet off and ran, did a rep in a crop top. And the coach said, oh, if I was you, I'd put your singlet back on. It's comments like that, similar to what your physio did, that you're like, that sticks with you. And for a young female athlete, that's brutal. So yeah, I'm really proud of, I guess, being, I don't know, whether it's like a role model or someone that younger athletes can look up to and not be the stereotypical shape, and still be doing great things in triathlon, hopefully.
Your strength is your strength. I think that's a beautiful adage that you shared there before. And I mean, there is fortunately a real growing awareness amongst coaches, practitioners in the field of the importance of fueling. So I see that as a big bonus. It's certainly a lot more topical than it ever used to be. But I think the general public still have there's a journey there, which probably always be uphill. It's not that, leanness doesn't equate to necessary good performance in many instances, the better. But Emma, just practically, you've learned so much in this space, but what would be your top maybe 3 tips for people on how to fuel for their training and their competition without falling into a state of underfueling?
Yeah, I think the massive shift for me came around thinking fuel the work required. So rather than be kind of reactive, I wanted to be proactive in terms of fueling. So completely shifting my mindset that I would be thinking, the night before, I'm thinking about what training I've got for the next day and fueling appropriately for that. When I wake up in the morning, okay, first session of the day, what is that? So what fuel is required. And similar, rather than being restrictive, I was able to kind of then start shifting the mindset and being like, okay, well, if I've got a recovery day tomorrow, then okay, dinner tonight can be a little bit lighter, but actually on that recovery day, I need to be fueling as per normal and eating a sufficient amount, because the next day might be like a super Saturday. Whereas I'd never, it sounds silly in hindsight, but prior to that, I'd always been, I guess, so closed-minded and just had bad habits from trying to trying to cut back on what I was consuming, that I was severely underfueling, and then as a result not able to perform in sessions, and became very reactive. So it would get to the end of the day and I'd barely eaten enough calories to get through, like barely, and you'd get to 10 p.m. at night and your stomach's hurting because you haven't eaten enough. So it's like then at 10 p.m. you're eating food, and it's like that's so backwards, and not conducive to performance or recovery. So again, it's kind of embarrassing when I look back on it, but I'm grateful that now I've built some really strong habits. And I'm so vocal. Every morning I have crumpets with Nutella and Biscoff as a minimum. So yeah, very proactive feeling.
That's an important point though, about it's an adage that many are familiar with: fuel for the work required, but such a powerful one. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about what you've got the next day. If it's a long, whatever training, ride or run or whatever, a big pool session, fuel for that. And I think a really important point just to highlight, you mentioned there, Emma, was fueling on the recovery days, not cutting back on those days, but we only get fitter when we're recovering, and we need fuel for that. That's what drives the hormonal response, right? So it's so backwards to think that cutting back on those days is somehow beneficial.
Yeah, and you still got to get through like our recovery days in athletes are still heavier than a normal person's day. So it just blows my mind when you see people completely, cut back on any intake on a recovery day. It's like, well, how do you expect that you're going to be backing up tomorrow when we've got one of the biggest days of the week? Like that's where your body's actually got the chance to absorb the fuel and absorb the work, and I guess bank those gains that you've made already.
You're listening to Emma Jeffcoat, Australian Olympic triathlete, on this featured performer episode, sharing on her career highs, lows, and learn-ins. Support for today's show comes from Polar. Coming from the heart of the Nordics and with over 40 years of proven performance, Polar believe it all starts with heart. Their products give you the most accurate way to plan, train, and recover. Polar's Precision Prime heart rate technology is the most accurate way to plan and track your activity and recovery 24/7, 365. Born in the Nordics to beautiful designs, Polar's watches are built to withstand the toughest conditions and make sure you've got a stunning watch for any occasion. Polar's features such as training load insights allow you to explore the limits of your body so you can find out if you are training just right to improve your performance and mitigate injury. And Polar's nightly recharge allows you to understand and predict your recovery so that you can not only own the night, but win the day. If you feel it's time to beat your best, jump across to shop Polar at polar.com to check out the all-new Polar range, including my favourite, the V2 Vantage Shift. Support for today's show also comes from Earshot's Bluetooth headphones. Lock on, train on, and rock on with Earshots. Earshots have you covered for staying motivated while you train. Their patented magnetic ear clip means you can push your limits without being distracted by annoying cords or earbuds that fall out. The team have generously offered up 10% off your purchase of Earshot's Bluetooth headphones by using the code PERFORMANCE, that's one word, capitals, performance, at www.earshots.com. www.earshots.com. I've got my own set of Earshots and they are my favourite headphones. They do not go flat like some of their competitors, and of course they do not dislodge and fall out. So jump over to earshots.com. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer guest, Emma Jeffcoat, Australian Olympic triathlete, sharing on her career highs, lows and learn-ins. Are you ready for a performance round, Emma Jeffcoat?
I am.
Here we go. Training session most disliked.
I hate a build run. Hate it.
Give me an example, Emma, of a build run.
So it'd be like a 1 hour build and we'd start like build per 10 minutes. And so, by halfway through, you want to be around 4-minute Ks. And by the last 10 minutes, it's kind of like sitting down around 3:30 to 3:20. And I'm all right if I've got company and the other person can pace it. But if it's just me, myself, I'm hopeless. I'm not I'm not good at pacing it an hour-long build, that's for sure. I always blow up.
60-minute build runs. Training session most loved?
I love a sprint session in the pool. Absolutely love it. Or open water. I really enjoy strength hill efforts on the bike. And run-wise, the shorter the better. Short, kind of fast efforts on a track or on the grass track. I really enjoy that.
What, like 400s or shorter?
Nah, 400s.
Gosh, you are a sucker for punishment. Favorite pre-race meal?
Pre-race. So if I'm racing in the morning, I'm the same. Great trip habit. It's crumpets with Nutella and Biscoff. I literally took frozen crumpets over to Tokyo because they weren't able to bring them into the village. And I took Biscoff and Nutella. So I literally have that on race day, and then I'd throw in a banana. And if I'm racing later in the day, probably just some plain rice with a bit of like sauce, some sweet chili or tomato sauce. Yeah, be basic.
Bedtime, morning time, what does that ideally look like for you?
I'm an early morning person. So wake up time probably around the sunrise, so about 5:30. And then bedtime's around 10 o'clock.
Who is the athlete Emma Jeffcoat most admires and why?
Topical, Ash Barty. I was lucky enough to watch her win on Saturday at the Australian Open, but I admired her long before that. I think not for her athletic pursuits, but I think recently in the work I've done working on myself as a human being, not as a human doing. And I think like Ash has done so much work in that space with Ben Crow, and I've got a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, gosh. And you were courtside there for that, historical moment for Australian sport when Ash took the title. What was it like? Just as a quick side note, must have been electric.
Oh, literally goosebumps. Like, it was surreal. I said to, I had my mum and dad there. I did well. I got them the tickets for a Christmas present. But I said to both of them, I said, this is one of those nights that you'll talk about to your kid. Like, I'll talk to my kids about it, or years down the track, is like, I was there when this happened, kind of thing. So very cool.
That's really cool. And then you hang around for the double success of the Kyrgios and Kokkinakis as well. So what a night.
Yeah, Special K is very entertaining.
Emma, toughest competitor you've ever raced against, who and why?
Ooh, toughest competitor I've ever raced against. I would think those British girls are bloody tough. So the likes of, Georgia Taylor-Brown, Sophie Caldwell, Jess Learmonth, Vicky and Non. I think those British girls, I admire them because as a country they are so strong, but they have such a genuine friendship, and they're so supportive of one another. But yeah, they're really tough competitors out there.
Is there a mantra that you use when you race or compete often?
Not when I race, but I think, you've said it a few times. I really like the mantra, dare to dream. In the last, 6 months, reflecting on that mantra, I think it's really shifted for me. I think before I used to really hone in on the dream part, but now it's actually become a lot more about the daring. And I have so much more pride in my strength being in that I'm a very daring individual and I'm going to go after it. And the dream is kind of a result of doing the hard work. So dare to dream.
It's funny. It rolls off the tongue, dare to dream, but you often don't think about that word dare much. So it's interesting what you share. Best recovery tip, Emma Jeffcoat?
Eat.
Powerful. One word to describe your racing style?
I would say aggressive.
Nice. How would you describe being in the zone?
I would say calm and relaxed.
Calm and relaxed. And finally, Emma, we know that epic sessions don't make champions, but can you recall the hardest session that you've ever done?
Ooh, the hardest session that I've ever done. Good question. I think for us, like, the hardest session that we do is kind of a Super Saturday. So we kind of go back to back. We do a brick session, bike run, and then straight into the pool. And all three are really brutal sessions. So depending on what time of year and what racing is coming up, the kind of bike workout will change. But it's always about an hour, of over threshold race pace, with some attacks thrown in, and then we run straight off the bike, and it's anywhere from 4 to 6 5-minute efforts. at race pace, and then we get in the pool for a sprint session. So I love a sprint session, but after that bike run workout, it really stings. And I think last week we did 30 50s max effort. So that gives you a taste of what the swim session is.
Wow.
So yeah, I sleep well on a Saturday night, that's for sure.
What were those 50s on? What was the cycle?
So we did them rotating off 50, 60, 110. So just like cycle through that. But all aiming to be around 30 for all of them. So yeah, safe to say I blew up by the end, but yeah, really solid session.
But you dared to dream, right?
It's the daring. I went after it.
You went after it.
No
Brilliant.
dreams accomplished.
Emma, you're out of the performance round. Well done. Every guest of the Physical Performance Show gets issued 2 set questions. Are you ready for the first?
Yeah, I think I know what's coming.
All right, it's a tough one. But if you could boil everything that you've learnt through your athletic life to date into one piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their physical best, what would Emma Jeffcoat's single piece of advice be?
I would say believe in yourself, stay humble, and be daring.
Believe in yourself, stay humble, and be daring. And I think believe in yourself's fairly self-evident. Be daring, you've shared on that. But staying humble, what do you mean by that? Staying humble how?
I think I just mean by that is, I guess, like not losing touch, in what I've learned over the last, 6 months and really reflected back on is, yes, I do triathlon, but triathlon isn't what I am. I'm Emma, and the people around me love me because I'm Emma, not because I'm a triathlete. And I think really realizing that, and not only just realizing it, but actually believing that, gave me a massive, it just left me feeling really grateful and humble as a result of that. So
yeah, brilliant. What a journey, Emma. And then finally, every guest issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Emma Jeffcoat's physical challenge going to be?
I was thinking about this beforehand, and I was like, oh, what can I think of? But I think, on trend, for me, I feel like sometimes we all get caught up in just doing, the work and honing in on, the numbers, and we kind of lose the fun of it. So I feel like one aspect for me that I think serves me so well is I do have a lot of fun with what I do. And it's something Danielle's been awesome at embracing along the way and throwing me into different activities and, events. So I guess my challenge to people is throw in something completely different to your weekly routine, but that's something fun. So whether, that might look different to certain individuals, down here in Melbourne, I love being in the surf and I really miss it. So I go and do urban surf once a week. I get an hour of perfect waves and I get to go surf, and I consider that part of my training because for me, it's fun. It helps me unwind. It's recovery. It's mental refresh. And honestly, it helps me be, a healthier person and a better athlete, to back up week on week consistently. So I think, I challenge people to kind of add something into their weekly routine that they're doing purely for fun and enjoyment. That's still physical. So maybe that's who knows, maybe that's a round of golf, or after the Australian Open, picking up a tennis racket with a few mates, getting out for a surf, or even just going for a swim in the ocean, not in the pool, and catching some waves at the end. Mix it up a little bit and have fun with it. We work so hard and are so disciplined and routine for a lot of what we do. So I think it's good to remember why we do it.
That's great. Wise words. Emma, what's next coming up 2022? Obviously, Commonwealth Games happen this year. Paris 2024. Where's Emma's attention? Where is Emma's attention looking ahead?
Yeah, so I guess short term, Com Games. We're not quite sure at the minute what the full automatic selection racing looks like for that. There'll be one race in Australia that will hold an automatic selection spot, and there'll be Yokohama holds another, and then the third spot will be discretionary. And being calm and adaptable to what that will end up looking like gearing towards selection for Com Games. So that's a major goal. And just to kind of get back racing consistently on the international stage. I've really missed it the last 2 years. So I'm super excited to be healthy, to be really happy, refreshed, and just like so eager to get after it. And I guess, rip in again to some consistent World Series racing. I've really missed it.
Brilliant. And Emma, following your journey, it's pretty easy, right? At Emma Jeffcoat over on Instagram. I'm assuming that's the best place.
Yep. You'll definitely get a lot of training and some intermittent horse pictures and some beach spam. So stay tuned.
The beach, the lighthouse, the iconic lighthouse, which often features.
Seriously, I should get a cut of the promotional work I do for that place up at Seal Rocks. But it's one of my favorite spots in the whole world.
For those that don't understand the geography, Seal Rocks, where's it found? And I mean, jump on the Instagram gallery, you'll quickly realize how beautiful the place is, right?
Yeah, we've been going there for 10 years. We're lucky enough to kind of have a place up there. So it's a treasure to our family. And it's about 3.5 hours north of Sydney, but it's kind of on the outskirts of a huge Mile Lakes National Park. And we're fortunate enough to stay at a literal lighthouse.
Brilliant. Beautiful as well. Emma Jeffcoat, we wish you all the best for 2022 and beyond. And thanks for sharing so openly and daringly on the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Dead dream, guys.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know that you enjoyed today's episode featuring Emma. If you did, jump over, let Emma know what it was that you enjoyed from her sharings. You'll find Emma over on Instagram at Emma Jeffcoat. Do tag Emma in if you take on the physical challenge or if you take a podsy. Also tag in the show at Physical Performance Show over on Instagram. Don't forget to register for the upcoming live stream event with Dr. Stephen Seiler. Durability and high-intensity repeatability in endurance training. It is going to be packed full of learn-ins. Jump over to physicalperformanceshow.com to secure your tickets from just $49 per person, including post-event recording and PDF copies of Dr. Seiler's presentation. Massive thanks to the show patrons and supporters. Your support practically helps production of the show week to week, and in return, we like to grant our patrons complimentary access to our back catalogue of live stream events and all upcoming live stream events, including Dr. Stephen Seiler's April live stream. You can become a patron of the show by jumping over to physicalperformanceshow.com and hitting the Patreon link, and there you can support the show from just $5 per month and open up a world of learn-ins. Big thanks to today's supporters, Polar and Earshot's Bluetooth headphones, both outstanding companies who continue to innovate and lead the way. Thank you for your support. Thank you also to the team that make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, audio engineering, Matthew Olding, graphic design, Susan Wilkin, show administration. You'll find the show notes over at physicalperformanceshow.com. It's our new website, and you'll find us now on YouTube featuring video content of our guests. Now, looking ahead, we have an action-packed schedule coming your way. Next week, we'll keep the triathlon and endurance theme going, and you'll enjoy hearing from one of the planet's greatest, most enduring endurance athletes, 8 times triathlon world champion, none other than Javier Gomez. Javier dropped by to share around his career highs, lows, and learnings, and looking ahead to 2022 with some Ironman championships on the line. Here's a snippet from my conversation with the one and only Javier Gomez.
I know that if I want to win, I have to go through a process of a lot of training and do things right, and then I'm prepared and I think I can win, and then I'm confident. If I don't do all that, I'm not really. But you learn through experience, and I remember being very nervous at the beginning of my races, competing as a junior, even an ultra race was really stressful for me. And, the last few years is going to finals of the World Championships, but I don't feel extra nervous or anything. I'm ready to do my job, and I do it the best I can.
So until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.